2017, DICE and EA released the second game in the rebooted Battlefront series. The game was critically panned in large part due to its progression system and heavy emphasis on microtransactions. The Metacritic scores for Battlefront 2 across all platforms are under 70. In spite of the poor critical scores, Battlefront 2 was nominated for a large number of awards. But the question is, today in 2019, is Battlefront 2 worth checking out? I played a few hours of Battlefront 2 as it is today. Battlefront 2 is a class-based third-person shooter with 4 basic classes. The Assault class is the most well-rounded out of the 4 basic classes. It uses a blaster rifle that's pretty accurate at most ranges and has a decent rate of fire. The Heavy class has greater survivability and rate of fire than the Assault, but is less accurate. Officer is honestly the class that I've played the least. It emphasizes a support role. It uses a blaster pistol. The final class is arguably the class that I have played the most. It's the Specialist. It's the Sniper class. Uses a long-range sniper rifle. The rifle is relatively fast to generate heat for the number of shots you actually get off, so you kind of have to be a little bit picky, but it is possible to suppress with it. You don't need to be sighted in to be good with it. You can make shots without the zoom-in because of the reticle system. It costs battle points, or BP, to play as a special unit. BP can be earned through a multitude of different methods: attacking enemies, capturing objectives, taking damage. If you're a heavy, there's a certain star card you can get that actually gives you BP for every time you take damage. So it's pretty abundant. However, once you use BP, it's gone for the rest of that match. So if you're having a really bad game, sometimes you really have to think about where you're spending that BP and when. Special units have their own health, weapons, and abilities from the ordinary 4 classes. Enforcers, like the Republic Commando, are a lot more tanky than the Heavy or the Assault. On top of the special units, there are 20 total heroes, 10 for the light and the dark side. Some of them are Force users like Luke or Sidious, and others are not, like Lando or Boss. In Galactic Assault, using heroes requires more battle points than using a special unit. There's an interesting risk and reward dynamic when choosing whether to play a single time as a hero or multiple times as a special unit or as a vehicle. When weighing whether to play as a special unit, a vehicle, or a hero, it's always important to remember that vehicles are the least expensive, always, out of the options that you can choose to buy with your BP. Progression in Battlefront 2 occurs in a few separate ways. Leveling in Battlefront 2 is class-specific, and experience in a class is gained by using that class in a match. When a class levels up, you're rewarded with credits and skill points. Skill points are used to unlock and upgrade star cards. Star cards are the primary gameplay-related method of customization. They allow the player to improve, alter, or replace entirely the abilities of a class. In order to unlock or upgrade a star card, you must both reach its required level as well as have the required number of skill points. Only 3 star cards can be equipped at a time, and all units, including the heroes, have multiple configurations. Star card effects may be as pedestrian as increasing the rate of your health regeneration or changing your Gatling blaster on a heavy to shoot explosives, making it far more effective against Jedi or vehicles. As I said earlier, the Heavy has a star card that actually allows them to gain battle points as they take damage. It's a neat way for them to encourage the Heavies to draw enemy fire away from the squishier units to help, push the front line. Progression also extends to the weaponry in the game. Each class has 4 total guns with 3 modifications each. The weapons are unlocked by reaching a kill milestone with a class. These are uniform, so they're the same across the classes. For instance, in order to unlock the IOA-11 sniper rifle for the Specialist class, a player will need to get 50 kills with the Specialist. For the next gun on the list, they must get 200 kills and then 400. Each weapon has 3 mods. In order to unlock them, you have to complete individual milestones for each one of them. So in order to use each weapon to its fullest, you're going to need to complete the kill milestone, which can be up to 400 kills depending on which gun you want to use, plus the requirements for each one of those modifications to unlock. That's incredibly grindy. The current system is a massive improvement over the progression system at launch. At launch, progression was tied to loot crates that could be bought with in-game money and real money. Weapon progression was the same, but star cards were really the thing that suffered. Upgrading was either tied to your regular upgrading as it is now, or buying star cards, and buying the star cards is far more expedient. While microtransactions still exist in the game, you can only really use crystals to buy voice lines, character appearances, and emotes. Buying loot crates to upgrade your star card is no longer a necessity or even really possible at all. As I said earlier, I really like the gunplay. The sound design is perfect. The actual models are really, really nicely done. The guns feel, from class to class, very different from one another. So when you're playing a heavy, your blaster's not going to feel very much like the Assault's E11. And that's a big improvement over the original reboot of the Battlefront games. Battlefront 2 does not feature a traditional ammo system. Instead, they use heat management. If you fire too often, your guns are going to overheat and not work. There are two ways to deal with this. One is that you just hold the trigger down anyway, in which case you'll actually have two windows of opportunity to use an active reload system, like in Gears of War. There are two windows. One, if you hit it, will just reduce your heat all the way, and you'll be able to start shooting very quickly. The second window, when you hit it, gives you a small period of time where you will be able to shoot without building up any heat at all. So you'll effectively have an extra free magazine. The active reload system is nice because it gives inexperienced and maybe unaware players a little bit of wiggle room when it comes to their shooting. It also gives experienced players an opportunity to strategize. I imagine that somebody who is suppressing a large number of enemies might rather go for the active reload than reloading manually. The time to kill in this game is a little higher than other shooters, and it certainly isn't uniform between the units. A special unit like the Republic Commando can take significantly more damage than the regular Assault class. And heroes, played the right way, can last a very long time. The average time to kill is just high enough to give players a chance to respond to unexpected attackers without compromising the element of surprise or clever maneuvering too seriously. Sprinting and rolling can be lifesavers in an engagement. Space combat is also a blast. The controls and mechanics are suitably different to have its own learning curve. Darting in and out of dogfights, through space stations, and around debris can be tense and exciting. Many heroes have counterparts in the Starfighter Assault mode, allowing you to play as characters like Darth Maul and Luke Skywalker in their own starships. The space combat is a bit of a missed opportunity, featuring significantly less variation in its game types than the ground combat aspects of the game. The modern sequel does have some neat space map design and the neat idea of having asymmetrical wind conditions, but I think they're underexplored compared to the 2005 sequel. The space battles in the original Battlefront 2 had two win conditions across all space battles: sabotage the enemy ship and reduce the enemy's reinforcements to zero. While simple, the open design of the space battles allowed the objective to be fulfilled in a number of ways. The capital ships could be sabotaged from both inside with explosives and from the outside with a ship, a fighter or a bomber. Enemy reinforcements could be depleted by engaging in dogfighting, killing boarding parties, or bringing a boarding party to the enemy ship. While Star Wars Battlefront 2 2017 does feature ship classes, it doesn't feel like the game modes were designed to facilitate using those ship classes for their apparent purpose. A lot of times I would use a fighter instead of a bomber to attack objectives, and then I would use an interceptor to fight other ships in dogfights. This was not so much the case in the original Battlefront 2. Y-Wings were wicked good at taking out Star Destroyer shields and components and stuff like that. Here, it doesn't feel like there's much of an advantage to using a Y-Wing over a TIE Fighter or over an Interceptor. Don't get me wrong, there's a lot of difference in handling between the ship classes, which is really nice to feel, but in terms of the role that they can play in the Battlefront, it doesn't feel like there's much of a difference. Like, their individual skills are not correctly applied. The ground game in Battlefront 2 is a lot more developed. Classes have specific roles that they play. There's a large number of game types. For instance, they can be traditional Battlefront Conquest, and there's even a take on Halo's Infection called Ewok Hunt, which is actually really tense. Most recently, Capital Supremacy mode was added. This mode, it's a regular Conquest game, but then it transitions to a sabotage mission on one of the team's capital ship. It's unfortunate that these interiors are not used during the space battles. I think that would really solve the problem that I have with space battles and bring them a lot closer to what space battles were in the original Battlefront 2. But that mode can create an interesting back and forth that really doesn't end until one of the capital ships is destroyed. I played a match for, I think, almost an hour, where we did the regular Conquest mode in Theed on Naboo, and we captured all the points, loaded into the gunships, it transitioned into the capital ship section of the game, and then we lost. And instead of the match being over, we basically got kicked off of the capital ship, back down the planet, had to do it again, went back up a second time, and then won. It was pretty dope. It was a pretty cool feeling to get that push and pull. Battlefront 2 is a good game, not a great game. Step up from the reboot and nails the infantry gameplay. It's really reminiscent of the original 2 titles, and it obviously improves on the presentation with graphics and sound design. I think it's worth checking out if you're feeling a need for a Star Wars game. I know I was. Especially one that you can play with your friends. I hope more people actually try this game out. I think the gameplay itself is really underrated. The loot box issue was a serious problem. It's been taken care of. It's gone. The game currently sells for $24.99. It gets updated pretty frequently. So check it out if you're feeling up for it.
Super.